The Formula 1 world of MyDriver comes to Baku for the first time in its existence, and all eyes are on Audi to embarrass the competition down those very long straights. In the Thursday press conference, Max Verstappen said that his team are praying for a miracle and a chaotic race to have any chance of beating the Audi guys. But there was some hope for the competition come Friday practice, as it was very apparent that Honda had finally brought upgraded power units for McLaren and Williams. Honda hoped the updates will help McLaren come back at the top 3 in the constructors fight and will help Williams close up to Force India in the standings as well. Meanwhile, Renault's power unit issues were very clear to see, with the Red Bull and Jaguar cars having to make up for the lack of straight line speed in the corners of Sector 2. This is a luxury that the Works Renault team doesn't seem to have, and they look to be set for a rather painful race weekend. So now let's take a look at the starting grid for the European Grand Prix here in Baku. As expected, it's an Audi front row lockout with Sergio Perez snatching pole position away from his teammate Carlos Sainz by over 0.3 of a second, but the pairing both 0.4 ahead of the rest of the field, so showing their strength around this circuit, whilst best of the rest is Lewis Hamilton, who line up in P3 in his McLaren, with his teammate Kevin Magnussen line up in P4, with its 2x2x2 with it's an all Mercedes pairing on the third row, Pascal Wehrlein in P5 and Max Verstappen in P6, whilst the new upgrades to the Honda power unit have clearly paid off, with Valtteri Bottas powering his Williams into P7 and Sebastian Vettel all the way down in P8, but a huge slump for Daniel Ricciardo, who started in pole position last time out, slumped 8 positions down to P9, with Kamara rounding out the top 10. Stoffel Vandoorne, best of the rest, outside the top 10, who lines up in P11, whilst Antonio Giovinazzi lines up alongside him in P12, whilst the other two teammates of Pierre Gasly in the Red Bull in P13 and the other teammate Aarava in P14 in his Jaguar. Whilst looking at the 8th row of the grid, Mick Schumacher lines up in P15 in his Force India, with Romain Grosjean in P16 in his Haas. Whilst on the 9th row of the grid, we can see that it's an all Alfa Romeo 9th row with Charles Leclerc and Antonio Fuoco in P17 and P18. Whilst looking at the final 2 rows of the grid, it's the final Force India of Esteban Ocon and the final Haas of Sergei Sirotkin, whilst it was an absolute terrible qualifying for both Renaults, with Nico Hülkenberg and Louis Delatraz rounding out the grid for the European Grand Prix.
What's going on, guys? Aarava here, and welcome back to my F1 MyDriver career mode, episode number 12 today from the Azerbaijan Grand Prix Baku. And after an absolute thrilling episode number 11 from the Belgium Grand Prix, I'm very much looking forward to this one. The championship is really, really hotting up there, with the top 4 drivers all maybe within a chance of this championship, with only 4 races left, including this one. If you did miss the Belgium Grand Prix episode number 11, uploaded last week on Friday, please do go check it out. Probably the race of the season so far, I think, according to some of you guys in the comments below. It was an absolute madness of a Grand Prix, so much action throughout. Do go check it out before you see this one, but it should be a pretty tasty one here in Baku. I've not got the best high hopes for the race, because to be honest, myself, going around Baku, it's not my favourite circuit. I've never really got on a rhythm of it, and also the car is a little bit down on power, obviously, compared to some other cars ahead of us. But, you know, hectic lap 1, we can maybe hope for something better than P14 at the moment that we qualified in. We line up next to our old teammate Pierre Gasly, so let's get straight into this then. So here we go, we're going to rev up to 5 red lights for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix here at Baku for the first time in F1 MyDriver. 5 red lights are out and we're underway from P14. It's a good start for us, a very poor one for our teammate Stoffel Vandoorne there on the right hand side, and he's down the order by 2 positions. We're going to turn 1 side by side with Antonio Giovinazzi momentarily before going down the order to P13. Now Vandoorne eventually gets up to speed. He's going to try and hang it around our outside here as we go into the second turn, but we're going to keep it up into P12, just about squeeze him out there on the exit. And then behind him we've got Antonio Fuoco, who's made a great start in the Alfa Romeo, and you can see up ahead of us as we look back from looking at Vandoorne, go ahead, and all the rest of the cars have kind of left us for dust there. So already getting a sense of the kind of straight line speed deficit we may be encountering this entire Grand Prix. But just like we did in qualifying, we can try and gain back some time in Sector 2, hopefully, using the downforce we have. And we are actually sticking with this train that's kind of tail-ended by Giovinazzi, led by Sergio Perez at the moment, into that turn. Then Sainz, then you've got 2 McLarens, and then 2 Mercedes cars, so all kind of like Noah's Ark at the moment, 2 by 2, but we'll see what goes on later on in this Grand Prix. I doubt it will end 2 by 2 there, but at the moment you can see the 2 Ferraris actually split the 2 Williams there, so Williams obviously buoyed by the improvement of the Honda engine this race weekend. But here we go on the back straight, getting the slipstream on Giovinazzi. So just like Belgium, although we're down on power, the slipstream on this game is so good that we can try and maybe have some overtakes this afternoon. So here we go, trying to go down the inside of 2 cars. This will be of the Williams car as well, offset to Camara. I think that'll be, or Bottas perhaps. Yeah, no, Camara, that's Camara. Bottas actually ahead of the 2 Ferrari cars, so my apologies there. So we're up into 10th place then, and so set to Camara in 11th, then it will be Giovinazzi, and up ahead we can see Ricciardo behind Vettel, behind Bottas then. So let's try and close up if we can on the next few laps. But into the second sector of lap 2, you can see Perez still leading the way, then Sainz, then you got the McLaren car of Lewis Hamilton, who's actually quite closely following Sainz there. So Hamilton looking a little bit punchy, and then behind them is Magnussen, who looks to be holding up the 2 Mercedes cars somewhat, and it's actually unfortunately for Verstappen, it's Wehrlein ahead of Verstappen, so that's not what Verstappen needs. Obviously Verstappen's the one in the championship fight, not Wehrlein, so I would assume at some point he would want to get past him quite rapidly. But speaking about getting past people, we go down the inside of Daniel Ricciardo, as we also see Vettel locking up, so could we make it a double overtake in this section? Could be quite tricky though. In the castle section we have to go to this lovely panning shot in the nose section, so we caught Ricciardo out quite easily actually. It looks like he was kind of taking a bit of a nap behind Sebastian, and then Sebastian himself also makes a mistake with a lock-up on the front right. So these Ferrari drivers a little bit under pressure somehow in this race, so maybe can we try and do something early on in this Grand Prix, only on lap 2. Can we make the move round the outside? It's going to be very, very close with Vettel. We get on the curbing, that forces us into a bit of a lock-up, and then you can see there, we've lost traction on the exit curb. You can see my rear wheels spun up, so that allows Ricciardo to send one down the inside. A bit of a dive bomb from him, but it's all good there. We go side by side into the next X section. Who's going to have the balls to keep their throttle in? It's going to be Ricciardo on the inside. We're on the outside. That will turn to the inside then for the next right-hander, and we just about keep 9th place there. But unfortunately, I really thought we could have got Vettel there around the outside, but because my right tyre got on the curbing, that kind of unsettled the car a little bit. So then onwards to lap 3 now, we can see a Mercedes driver going side by side with a McLaren. I think it's Magnussen and Max Verstappen there. So Wehrlein's already overtaken Magnussen, probably on the pit straight I would assume, and now Verstappen's actually struggling to get past Magnussen, so much so that now there's a bit of a train forming behind Magnussen of Bottas, then Vettel, and then we're going to closely follow behind there and that last shot. But then up ahead is Wehrlein, who's got away from that pack and is actually closing up on Hamilton, who's equally closing up on Carlos Sainz. So very surprising that Wehrlein seeming the more comfortable driver for Mercedes this afternoon, and Hamilton, surprisingly, I mentioned it already, is really keeping up with Sainz. And look at that, Sainz is actually losing time to Perez here. So obviously the same machinery, but it looks like Perez is a lot more comfortable, maybe gaining more time in Sector 2. Obviously both of them will have that engine advantage, but Perez is definitely pulling away from this pack. So this is not what he needs as well, Sainz, because Sainz is the one in the championship fight. Perez hasn't, Perez got really unlucky this season, to be fair to him. So at the moment he's doing the job that Sainz technically really should be doing for himself. Obviously he's not leading the championship anymore after the absolute insane race we had last time out. I'm actually the one leading the championship, but I feel like we may be losing a fair few points this afternoon to everyone ahead of us. But we do make the overtake on Sebastian Vettel though, so up into P8 as Wehrlein sets the fast up of the Grand Prix. Very surprising. So at the moment, maybe Audi taking a bit of a back seat, maybe turning down their engines a little bit to save some fuel, not too sure. But at the moment, Wehrlein's the one of the star of the show, out on track setting purple times. And you can see now, eventually, Verstappen's got past Magnussen there. So Verstappen then in P5, then Magnussen, then we've got Bottas, who we're going to try and get a bit of DRS off. Vettel's going to have DRS off me, I think, maybe. And look at that up ahead. Bottas goes down the inside of Kevin Magnussen. That lower drag Williams versus the higher downforce McLaren. Can Magnussen keep this 6th place? For now, it's not. We're going to try and have a look around. We try and just kind of snake around Magnussen from right to left. That actually puts us off a little bit as Vettel goes down the inside. But now we've got the traction on Magnussen and we've locked up as we try to nearly maybe even get Bottas, nearly steam into the back of him there. And Magnussen goes side by side with us, but we just about get it. And so that'll be us up into what will be P7, I think that is now. And Magnussen down to P8. Vettel unable to make any overtakes there. Vettel did actually have a look down my inside as I snaked around from right to left. But now as we enter Sector 3 and get on towards the end of the lap of lap 4, on towards lap 5, onto the main pit straight, we will have to look back behind us a little bit because Magnussen will have DRS here. so this may be a bit of a futile fight, but the thing is, I can try and outbrake him. He has to come from quite a way back there, because he did get quite held up with the initial kind of overtake we made on him. So can we try and outbrake him into turn 1? He's going to do quite well. Actually, he's still there on the outside. There's been some contact made as the hand of anger goes up on the right-hand side in my cockpit there. So Magnussen's got it, but we'll try and dive bomb him back there and try and give him a bit of his own medicine there. But no, Magnussen's got it so far. He'll actually have, annoyingly, a second bite of the cherry of DRS. But as I mentioned before, with how good the slipstream is on this game, I actually am able to keep up with him, and we actually send it once again down the inside. Tad a bit of a lock up on the left. That'll allow him to keep it on the right-hand side. We lose the back end a little bit, but we're going to go for a big lunge, but actually that's a huge mistake for us. We lock up on the front right tyre, and actually Vettel gets it and just nips it down the inside of us. So he's back up into 8th place, and we're down to 9th. So that was a kind of uncharacteristic mistake there on the right-hander. So we're going to have to try and re-overtake Vettel. I wonder, could it be in the same place we tried to make a move on lap 1, was it? This time I'm going to go down the inside of this corner, and this time no curbing's going to stop us making that overtake. Lovely little bit of flick of oversteer on exit for good measure, just to scare Vettel off there. And now we're up back into 8th place, and a nice little turn on the left there. I really love that left-hander. That's one of the only corners I actually like here at Baku. Apart from that, I actually think this is a terrible circuit, but that left-hander going into Sector 3 is actually quite a sweet one if you get it hooked up and just get the momentum right. But now we move on to lap 7, and we look here at the top fight there. Now, eventually, we saw before Sainz was struggling, but now, by lap 7, I feel like maybe Sainz has got back into his rhythm now, because he is right back there behind Sergio Perez, actually gaining a little bit in the slipstream there as they go on in towards Sector 3. Then behind them is actually Pascal Wehrlein, who's managed to overtake Lewis Hamilton. So Wehrlein, I mentioned, was a bit of a star in that opening few laps. He's actually overtaken Hamilton, and he's really flexing his muscles in the Mercedes car, maybe trying to prove a point. You know, there's been some rustlings about he needs to still prove that he's worth the drive to Mercedes for next year, so he's doing the job at the moment. But let's go back into that top flight fight. The top two, the Audis, we thought this would be the scenes pretty much for the entire Grand Prix, really. Two Audis fighting amongst themselves, and it's actually Perez who gets to overtake him, but Perez actually goes into the pits, so maybe that's why Sainz was able to overtake Perez, because Perez wasn't going to put up too much of a fight, because he comes in for a pit stop quite early compared to the McLarens and Mercedes cars on lap 7. So Perez from super soft. So I wonder which tyre he'll put on here. I have a suspicion that it may be a bit of a softer compound sort of thing. Yeah, he puts on the soft tyre, so I think Perez at least. I'm not too sure about Sainz. We'll have to wait and see, but at least Perez is going for a very aggressive strategy there. Maybe the 2-stop. I think there is a 1-stop possible if you go from super softs to mediums or softs to mediums. We'll have to see what happens there. If you actually cast your minds back to the Spanish Grand Prix, there we saw both Audi's cars struggling with tyre wear compared to everyone else around the Catalonia circuit. So maybe some little kind of murmurings of that repeat, maybe, if Perez and Sainz have to make extra pit stops compared to everyone else. I mean, they'll have the speed in a straight line to catch back up, but it's just about if they can gain that much time to afford an entire extra pit stop. We'll have to see. But on towards lap 8, we have got DRS on Kevin Magnussen. We're on low fuel at the moment. We go down to lean because I actually spot here Bottas coming to the pit, so I thought I'd fancy a bit of that myself. So I come in and basically mirror Bottas, because I think I'm going to be basically fighting the likes of maybe Magnussen, the two Ferraris and the Williams cars today. I would be lying if I said I genuinely thought we could be fighting the Mercedes or the McLarens or even the Audis. So I think I want to try and mirror their strategy. So I've come in at the same time as Bottas. I also was on lean mix there because we are having to save some fuel actually. The Land Rover branded Renault engine is quite thirsty around here at Baku. So I'm having to actually go and lean mix for quite a few of these sections. Mainly in Sector 2, obviously. Sector 1 and 3, mainly straight, so I want to have that standard mix there. But in Sector 2, definitely lean mix to just try and save the fuel where we can. And now we actually make a little bit of a move down on the inside of Valtteri Bottas there on the fresh, soft tyres. And we've actually got that, and whilst being in a bit of low fuel there, you can see on the right-hand side of your screen that you've got that yellow indicator saying that I'm under-fueled at the moment. And we make a bit of a switchback move on Nico Hülkenberg, who's struggling on those super softs. So remember, he's not pit yet, so he'll be having that tyre wear kick in soon. So can we try and make a similar move like the one we made on Vettel? But this time we go around the outside, and this time this is the exact sort of move I wanted to make on Vettel in that opening stage of the Grand Prix. Right around the outside cleanly. That time we made it work. Didn't lock up on the curbing there. And so then we go on towards that nice left-hander that I said I liked before. And we're up the order, and we can try and use a bit of clean air to get ahead. But now on lap 9, we've finally got the likes of the McLaren boys and the Mercedes come in. So that's Hamilton in from Supersoft, and behind him I'm guessing that will be Verstappen, because I believe Wehrlein was ahead of him, wasn't he? So we've got Hamilton on the medium tyres. So Hamilton perhaps doing doing the one-stop, maybe. We can see there's the Audi of Sainz, actually, That's Sainz who's gone round, and that's Perez who's down the order. Perez finds himself behind Stoffel Vandoorne, my teammate, so Vandoorne yet to pit there. So Sainz is now into first place on a set of medium tyres. Perez is in third on soft, so split strategy for the two Audi boys, and Perez is actually kind of lost positions by somehow pitting earlier and onto softer tyres. That's amazing. That's very odd. So the overcut maybe is the way to go, Baku. But yeah, it's Sainz in the lead this Grand Prix with on medium tyres. Perez on softs in second. Then Vandoorne yet to pit in third place there. And then we've got Hamilton, Verstappen and Verline coming out in the order behind them. And you've got a few other cars who are yet to pit, like Louis Delatraz here up ahead of us. He's actually annoyingly going to hold us up here. I wanted to so make a move into the castle section, but there's just no way you can do that. You'll just end up in a crash, unfortunately. So I have to stick behind him, unfortunately, lose a bit of time, but hopefully we can get him on this back straight, and then we can get a move on to using the fresh rubber from these soft tyres. But I really need to make this move now, or kind of basically lose even more time to Louis. So we make a move down the inside, go right to left, faked him a little bit to make him think I was going around the outside, but then we went down the inside, and you can see the pace difference there through that corner, straight around the attraction. I just gained about half a second there on him, because he just really, it's lap 10 and he's on super soft still, so his tyres must have been so second-hand by that point. But now we move our attention to lap 11 here, and this is actually Sergio Perez who's got back into the lead of this Grand Prix, and Sainz locking up 2 corners in a row. Look at that, a huge lock-up for Sainz on the front left. I think he may have brake issues here. I mean, obviously, for obvious reasons, Baku's going to be tough on the brakes, especially down to, turns like turn 1. And it looks like Sainz, with 2 lockups in 2 corners, is really struggling. And now, on the back of him is Vandoorne, the McLaren of Lewis Hamilton in both Mercedes cars, Verline and Verstappen. And it's going to be, Vandoorne's overtaken Sainz. Has Sainz got issues with his engine as well, as Hamilton goes down the inside of him as well. So Sainz has lost 2 positions there down the straight. They're all medium tyres, actually, so they've got no difference in pace on tyres. But down the inside of this next corner, turn 2, we have Verline trying to have a look down the inside of Sainz. But here's Carlos Sainz seemingly struggling with some sort of issue, because look at that. Vandoorne and Hamilton have kind of blitzed away off into the distance, and then down the inside here is going to be Verline. So he goes down the inside very, very easily. So Sainz has some sort of brake issue, engine issue, I don't know. He's having many, many problems at the moment in this Grand Prix, and he's way down the order now. He's lost 3 positions in about half a lap there. So that is the complete opposite of what he needs in this championship at the moment, because now he finds himself defending himself from one of his main title rivals, Max Verstappen, his former teammate from the Toro Rosso days. Will Verstappen make a move? Not quite yet into this next section. Yellow flags up ahead. My engineer's telling me there's an issue for a car. Is it Giovinazzi? I think it is. Giovinazzi's slowing down. I think he has a puncture, I think that is, on his right rear. So that was my engineer telling me there was an issue up ahead for a car. I wasn't too sure which one it was, but it's Giovinazzi. So that's really unfortunate for Antonio, after such a great race he had last time out in Belgium, obviously, to now have a puncture that will really send him down the order. And as we move back up to looking at the top flight, we can see Perez in a world of his own at the moment in P1 now. So initially he did move down to P2 with that kind of overcut working for Sainz, but now back in the swing of things, and Perez looking very, very dominant so far, and quite the opposite can be said for his teammate Carlos Sainz, because he's still defending from Max Verstappen here. But as they go through to the S section, obviously with DRS and slipstream, surely this will be Max Verstappen overtaking his rival Sainz here, and that will be some much needed points and good confidence for Verstappen, who so far has been sort of beaten by Verline this weekend. And Perez sets the fast lap of the Grand Prix as Verstappen overtakes Sainz up ahead. So that just clearly demonstrates that Sainz definitely does have some sort of issue. I don't know what exactly it is, but it is some sort of issue that means he can't set a fast lap of the Grand Prix like his teammate. And speaking about teammates, Vandoorne eventually makes his pit stop from super soft tyres on lap 12. So Stoffel's done an absolutely flipping fantastic job to take those super softs 12 laps compared to 7 laps for Perez, and I was only on lap 8 pitting in, so that's a mega job Stoffel's done there. And then anyway, going back to our fight with now Carlos Sainz, I did mention that he was having issues, and now it's even more clear than ever, because we've caught up to him now, and we're actually looking to maybe overtake him. Here we go, down the inside, the same place we made the move on 2 other cars previously in this Grand Prix of Ricciardo and that Renault, I think it was, if I remember correctly, or the Williams car, wasn't it? and now we're up into 5th place, and we've overtaken an Audi car. I don't think you could have expected us to say that last time out at the very end of the Belgium Grand Prix, looking towards this Grand Prix, Baku. But there you go, we have actually overtaken Sainz, and he's actually having so much more of a worse Grand Prix because now he's under pressure from Magnussen, and I think that's one of the Williams cars to have set to Camara perhaps, or even Bottas. Here goes the Williams car, and Magnussen left-hand side. This is going to be heart-wrenching for Sainz. You know, he's just sat there with what should be the best car at this race weekend, and he's just a sitting duck at the moment. He gets overtaken by both cars. If I was Sainz, I'd be stabbing myself in the cockpit right now. You're in an Audi car, promised so much straightlinespeed.com, and he just sat there like an absolute turtle down the straights. And now we can see up ahead, Verstappen now is closing up on what will be one Lewis Hamilton, who's still yet to try and close up to Verline. So Verline is still doing an absolutely fantastic job in 2nd place there, and he's really shining at the moment. And Perez equally as well. He's just in a world of his own, as I mentioned before. He's literally got no one around him, behind him, ahead of him. He just must be chilling out, getting the deck chair out in the middle of that cockpit, because he's got no issues, really. The only person who could have really hampered him was his teammate, but his teammate's now about, I don't know, 10 positions down the order. That's insane to think about. How far Sainz has fallen now. And so as we move on to lap 14 through the castle section, because now these guys have got clean air, Magnussen and I think that's Bottas in the Williams car, these two are caught up to me now, so this is where their straight line speed is going to come into handy. The two Honda engines. Here comes Magnussen on the medium tyres, and will be Bottas on the soft tyres. So I'm definitely fighting Bottas in this Grand Prix because he's gone on the exact same tyre strategy as me, but he's got DRS wide open. We're going to try now, break him perhaps into turn 1. I just mentioned we're going to fight him, and we're going to fight him straight away, literally, for track position here. We go side by side. Can we get it into turn 2? He's going to try and hang around the outside. We're going to have to squeeze him out into the curbing, leave him the room though. And I don't know who's going to get DRS here. I think we should be fine for now. Yes, we are, as we move now onto lap 17, the next lap now. And now back through turn 2. Now, this is where Bottas will have DRS for sure. And unfortunately for us, I don't think there's much we can really do here. It's quite a long back straight, actually. And with DRS, he just gets completely past this well before the braking zone, so we're going to have to just stick behind him in 7th place and maybe just hang back onto his rear gearbox and try and re-overtake him at some point later on in this Grand Prix. Onto lap 18 we go. We're now looking at this fight up ahead for Verline P2, Hamilton P3, and P4 is Max Verstappen now. Verstappen on the medium tyres, Hamilton mediums, and I think Verline as well. So all these guys on the same strategy seemingly, and there goes Hamilton. DRS wide open. Verstappen has DRS on his teammate, so will he make the easy pass? No, so no team orders there for Mercedes so far. They're going to let Verline and Verstappen race, and there goes now Verstappen at the end of lap 18 down the back straight. Will eventually overtake Verline now, so it'll be at the moment Sergio Perez leading the Grand Prix, Hamilton now in P2 and Verstappen in P3. So crucial for Verstappen and Hamilton to be in those positions, whilst Carlos Sainz is way down the order now in P8 behind us. Actually, I say way down the order, he's actually been slowly been hanging back with us and catching back up to us. So I wonder if Audi have maybe got that issue fixed, because he has been actually closing up on us in the last few laps, because on the mini-map you can see he's only a few seconds down on us down the road, and as we get caught up behind Bottas, this will only help him. Can we try and make a diving move down the inside? No, we can't. We have to think better a bit. So all the while, this is going to help Sainz close up to us, and this is going to really help Sainz close up to us as we lose the back end majorly. So making some mistakes now as our tyres start to go off. The soft tyres not really coping very well here around Baku, but here we go, side by side into the S section. Lovely little overtake there on Bottas, a very unexpected slipstream, and I had the balls to just keep the throttle in on the left-hander, and we've got that. And up ahead, we've got Sergio Perez making that predicted second pit stop there, so he's going to go very aggressive. So I'm going to second guess and probably say he's going to go either soft or another set of super softs. I wouldn't imagine mediums at this stage of the Grand Prix. Now, yes, it is going to be a set of super soft tyres, so Perez going very aggressive. So at the moment, it's going to be Hamilton leading the Grand Prix, then Verstappen in P2, and crucially, both these guys are medium tyres. So if those two guys can keep their tyres well enough, they may have an opportunity to get first and second if they can fend off Perez, but that's a big but, because Perez is going to be charging on super softs, and the same can be said for Pascal Wehrlein, who, no, actually, Wehrlein's just way down the order, actually. I thought he maybe made a pit stop with Perez, but no, he's just lost a lot of time there on his very warm medium tyres, being overtaken by Magnussen, actually, so I would suggest Wehrlein probably thinks about making a pit stop, because he's, like, now 10 seconds down on his teammate, and on the same strategy. But now we move on to lap 19, our tyres starting to go off, especially the rear left tyre, actually, surprisingly, and now we've got Ricciardo closing right up to us. Not just Ricciardo, actually, actually. We've also got Sainz and Vettel as well. So a whole gaggle of cars overtaking us. There goes Sainz now up the order, overtaking both Ferrari cars. We're actually going to make a pit stop now, so we dive into the pit. I can't take these soft tires anymore. So now we're going to go, just like Perez did, onto a set of super soft tires. And look at that. Bottas comes in the same pit stop as us. So, like I did to Bottas on the first pit stop, Bottas mirrors my pit stop for the second time there. So now we're both in. We're probably both going to put on super soft tyres, at least I am. And now it's about 6 laps of pushing non-stop, flat out, trying to see where we can get in this Grand Prix. There goes Bottas' teammate, Teta Camara, in the Williams car, who's doing a fantastic job actually there. I think he's actually legitimately ahead of us there on strategy. So Teta Camara doing a brilliant job there, the lone Brazilian on the grid in Formula 1 these days, in P10 at the moment. We're P11 as we come out. Meanwhile, back up at the front of this Grand Prix, I said it was going to be a big but if Verstappen and Hamilton can keep Perez behind, and there we go on lap 22, 4 laps remaining. Perez is already right up the back of Verstappen on 2 softer compound of tyres, super softs versus mediums, and obviously that Audi engine. There we go. Very, very simple for Perez, really. And I'm pretty sure him and his team and his engineers were very confident that he can make this strategy work. So he's back up into P2, and I would say it wouldn't be very surprising, and you could probably already predict he's going to be back up into P1 in no time there. I'm pretty sure his engineering crew had no qualms that he'd be able to re-overtake those 2 guys for the lead of this Grand Prix. So it's really just about if Hamilton and Verstappen can make those tyres last for themselves to keep P2 and P3 respectively. Meanwhile, back down the order, we've got the 2 Ferrari cars going side by side. Vettel and Ricciardo going hammer and tong. Vettel up the order now, overtaking Ricciardo then. Vandoorne, who's behind them, has an engine failure. Oh, Vandoorne was looking so good there, closing up to the Ferrari cars. Obviously, I mentioned before he did a fantastic job to keep those super softs going for so long in the first stint, but no. For the first time, the Land Rover branded Renault engine in the back of this Jaguar car has completely blown up there. Obviously, we had issues at Singapore in my car, but now this is the first time we've had a DNF for an engine failure for Jaguar. That's unfortunate, but also at the same time, not going to lie, that's great signs that it's taken to the round 12 for us to see our first engine failure, unlike most other teams. So, yeah, I can't be too disheartened for that personally, but for Vandoorne, that's really quite unlucky actually. Vandoorne has not had the best luck this season, and I think with a bit of rub of the green like I have this season, me and him would have been kind of very close on points, but so far in the last few rounds I've kind of got away from him in the championship in terms of points. And now to lap 23, unfortunately for me, Sainz is now back into this Grand Prix fight, and he goes swooping round very, very easily on the pit straight. And I mentioned he was coming back at us, and now it looks like his engine issues or brake issues, whatever it was, is completely sorted. So he's now making a late charge here. So really, this is going to be Sainz doing a bit of damage limitation really in this Grand Prix. And Hamilton's in! Hamilton's in, didn't realise this till now. I was too busy talking about Sainz. Hamilton's in for a late pit stop. He's not made the one stop work, so now it's Perez from Verstappen in second. Is Hamilton going to get jumped here? He makes a late pit stop onto a set of super soft tyres. But actually, luckily for him, I think he's actually come out in third. I think Hamilton has made an extra pit stop, but because the top 3, Perez and Verstappen and him, have had so much pace in this Grand Prix, I think Hamilton's still in third place there. So it'll be Perez, Verstappen, Hamilton. Then it looks like it's Kevin Magnussen in 4th place, followed by Seta Camara, surprisingly, in the Williams car, doing a fantastic job there. Sainz in P6, then myself in P7, which begs the question, where on earth is Pascal Wehrlein? He's just disappeared from this Grand Prix out of the top flight there, so we'll have to kind of question that after the Grand Prix's ended. But here comes Vettel. He's in the mirrors there on the left-hand side, and Seta Camara's out of this Grand Prix. Oh, that's such a shame for the young Brazilian in the Williams, who was so far up the order, and Vettel's just managed to overtake us down the inside, I think just about on the green flag. It's a little bit questionable there, but the Brazilian's out of this Grand Prix. Engine failure for him. So unfortunately his Honda power unit has given way, so he was in P5, which would have been absolutely amazing for him. Let's look at a replay here. He was just about ahead of Sainz, and there you go, going into that corner, just huge engine blow up for him, similar to Vandoorne, and he parks it up here, coming off on the runoff area, so that's Sainz back up past him. So after all of that, Sainz having those issues fixed for him on the fly by Audi, and that engine failure for Vandoorne and Seta Camara, it means that Sainz has got a bit of luck back in this Grand Prix, and he's back up into P5 now, which would be quite respectable considering how far he was going down the order earlier on in this Grand Prix. Vettel's fully overtaken us, and I actually can't keep up with him. I actually lost about a second to him, because now I'm really struggling on these super softs. I've locked up majorly into this next corner, hit the wall actually. I'm having to squeeze Wehrlein, so here is Wehrlein, so he's come out of nowhere, so he must have really lost a lot of pace on his medium tyres, but now he's coming back in this Grand Prix. We're going to have to try and squeeze him onto the left-hand side, and I'm weaving around trying to defend my position, because this is the last lap of the Grand Prix, the last corner, the last straight, and I'm not liking the look of this, because here comes Wehrlein. Here comes the Williams car of Bottas and potentially the Ferrari Ricciardo. They go side by side with me, 3 wide. Across the line, it'll be Wehrlein who gets P7, Bottas P8, and I finish up in a lowly P9, just about keep ahead of Ricciardo. But look at a replay of this. On the back straight, Wehrlein, annoyingly, just with that Mercedes power, and Bottas equally with the Honda power, I'm just helpless. I'm like a turtle on the straight, like Sainz was earlier on the Grand Prix, and I just have to sit there and take it. And I'm in P9, unfortunately. I even ran out of fuel right at the end there. So that's really unfortunate. I lose 2 positions right at the end, and I can only kind of shout at Renault and what their dismal engine's doing to my car and my patience. So unfortunately, it's only P9 for us. So, you know, I got to say a little bit better than maybe what I expected, to be honest, because we qualified in P14. And earlier on that Grand Prix, we were looking pretty tasty just at the end there. Just couldn't keep up that pace I had earlier on in the Grand Prix. But what a great race for Sergio Perez there. Dominated that race, really. Did the 2-stop, overtook Verstappen and Hamilton. But that's also a fantastic race for Hamilton and Verstappen, because it now means in the Drivers' Championship, Sainz does get back into the lead of this Grand Prix, into the lead of the Championship, actually, because I'm way down the order. So he's back in the lead by 132. But Verstappen now closes up to 2 points only between Sainz and Verstappen there, with that great P2 for him. We're in P3 now, 127 points. Only 4 points there ahead of, I should say 5 points ahead of Lewis Hamilton in P4, who gets a good 3rd place there. So the top 4 getting closer and closer, actually. We're just kind of bunching up every single race. So this is getting very much like Season 3, if you remember. Season 3 was a fight between myself, Daniel Ricciardo, and the 2 Red Bulls at the time of Verstappen and Pierre Gasly. It's looking like a lot like Season 3 now. It's kind of really bunching up quite a bit and getting very, very tasty for that top 4. And the constructors, equally so. I mean, Audi with Perez, though, they do a great job to swing back comfortably into 1st place there with 241 points to Mercedes 223 in 2nd place. Jaguar, now we find ourselves slipping back down to 3rd place, unfortunately, with 210. And now McLaren, with that good finish for 3rd and 4th with Magnussen and Hamilton, climb up into 185. So they're getting closer and closer to us. So I think for us as an objective for Jaguar, I think we're looking to try maybe solidify 3rd, maybe try and get 2nd if we can, but hopefully we don't slip behind McLaren. That'll be the biggest thing for us for next season, because that'll mean a lot of prize money for us. But that has been, I guess you could say, a successful Grand Prix for us, considering how our car should have performed and how we actually did at the beginning of that Grand Prix. So I can't be too disheartened. And in terms of action, a great amount of action for the top flight. You know, the top 4 fighting away. Great stuff between Perez, Verstappen and Hamilton there. And also Sainz coming back into this Grand Prix. He had a good fight there. So if you did enjoy that Grand Prix, smash the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around here, then do subscribe for weekly F1 content. I'll see you guys next time for the next MyDriver episode. I'll see you guys next time in general on this channel. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you guys next time.